And now to political matters. The controversy over the position of National Secretary in the People's Democratic Party, PDP, remains unresolved as the party's National Executive Committee says a final decision will be taken at its next meeting slated for June 30th. Addressing journalists at the conclusion of the 99th NEC meeting held in Abuja, the acting national chairman of the party, Umar Damagum, said the NEC received and adopted the resolution from the South East Zonal Executive Committee on the disputed office but deferred final action. Meanwhile, the NEC ratified the composition of key committees ahead of the party's national convention. Bayelsa State Governor Duye Diri will chair the zoning committee for national officers. He will be supported by Zamfara State Governor Dauda Lawal as vice chairman and Plateau State Governor Caleb Mufwang as secretary. And now to discuss the crisis rocking the party, we're joined by the convener, PDP Youth Alliance for Good Governance, David Godwin. Mr. Godwin, thanks so much for joining us. Acting national chairman of your party says the challenges plaguing the party are self-inflicted. Do you agree?
Good evening, Judith. Of course, good evening, Nigerians. To your question, I think as a personal opinion, I agree that at least for once, the acting national chairman Umar Damagum has owned up to some of the issues and the challenges bedeviling the People's Democratic Party. Yes, it is true. I agree 100% that the problems of the party is self-inflicted. And then to a very large extent, I want to clearly state that even he, Umar Damagum, cannot exonerate himself from the issues bedeviling the party. Because from inception, since after the 2023 presidential primary election, where there seems to be an aggrieved presence in the person of Wike, and then up until the period where Ayu resigned, and then he came on board in acting capacity as the national chairman of the party, we had expected that, okay, after a period of 90 days, he would have stepped aside to allow for a proper candidate from the North Central region to complete the tenure of the national chairman, which is originally zoned to the North Central. So having said this, it means that he himself is part of the problem, and then the people that decided for their own personal reasons to be aggrieved after the presidential election, the primary election of the PDP, these are the people who have inflicted this crisis on the party. So yes, I agree that the problems are self-inflicted.
Right. So, I mean, at this point, one has to ask, for you to somewhat identify structural weaknesses within the party's constitution or leadership processes that may have contributed to this crisis. Can you identify them, please?
Yeah, well, the truth is that from the inception, okay, let me just, because of time, let me just quickly say that I want to agree, I believe that Nigerians have come to a general consensus that the PDP primary election in 2023, which was the origin of all these whole crises, was free, fair, and credible. Having said that, some persons decided, since it didn't go their way, I want to believe that the better politician won, and since it didn't go their way, they decided to throw all sort of tantrums to the party, engage in anti-party activities. And then talking about the structures of the party that is supposed to deal with some of these crises. Yes, every erring member, anti-party politics is a serious and grievous offense as far as the People's Democratic Party is concerned. And then there are provisions of our constitution that have spelled out how best to deal with such persons. And then the issues of discipline again is another problem. If Damagun have, summoned the courage as the chairman of the People's Democratic Party in acting capacity to deal with all these issues, I am sure that by now these problems would have been put behind us, nip in the bud, and then forge ahead as a very strong opposition ahead of 2027. So first of all, I also understand that there were some committees were set aside. I'm talking about the Conciliation Committee that was chaired by the of eminent personality like the former governor and the president of the 8th Senate, Senator Dr. Bukola Saraki. I want to believe that in as much as we believe in his capacity to do justice, but it is also important that we allow Nigeria to know that there will be no corporate reconciliation, if justice have not been seen to be met out, if fairness have not been seen to be met out to erring persons, if discipline have not been seen to be carried out on those people that have constantly denigrated the party and tried to act as cog in the wheel of progress of the party. So to this end, the provisions of the People's Democratic Party is clear on how to deal with such erring members.
And I mean, at this point, let's just name names, right? What impact will the withdrawal of FCT Minister Nyesom Wike from all previously reached agreements aimed at resolving the ongoing crisis have?
That again in itself is an aberration, I must say this, because negotiating on behalf of the party with Nyesom Wike, you have just played into Nyesom Wike's hands. You have just made him assume the powers that he has that clearly not his. Negotiating on behalf of the party with Wike, it means technically that you have actually considered the party to the person of Nyesom Wike, and of course he would want to, knowing the person of Wike, he would never want to let go. Having said this, let me tell you something. Any agreement that is made with the person of Governor Wike that is not in tandem with the general populace of the party, with the interest of the party, I want to agree and I want to say this. And I believe I speak for the majority of the People's Democratic Party when I say such agreement should not be seen to be honored. Because as far as we are concerned, the People's Democratic Party is bigger than one human being. It is christened the People's Democratic Party for a reason. It is not called one man's People's Democratic Party.
But
no,
David,
the people own the party.
But David, he does wield power. From what we've seen in the last 2 years, he does wield power. When he was unable to clinch the ticket to be presidential candidate of the party, he created G5, and he has been very vocal about where his loyalties lie and his support lies. And we've seen how much power he can wield, both at the federal level and state level in his constituents, and that's Rivers State. Don't you think it's unfair to the leaders wanting to, play ball to sort of have peace and smoothing out this crisis?
Judith, everything you have said is true, and I agree with what you have said. To an extent, to a larger extent, he wielded the starting power because he betrayed his party, and then the APC government, as led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has actually considered him and then gave him certain, allow him certain, room to operate, and makes him think that he is larger than life, and then of course bigger than the party. But again, let me tell you, it brings us back to the ineffectiveness of the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party, as led by Ambassador Umar Damagum, who, by the way, is illegal acting national chairman. If he understands his onions and he knows his onions, there is no way he would have, led them on. Because the first thing to do, knowing fully well that these persons or the group of G5 are involved in serious anti-parties, it is not a new thing to Nigerians. Nigerians out there know the truth. What was the next thing for him to do? The next thing for him to do was to spell out, to read out the right as it is considered in our constitutions. Expel these persons, or even if you will not expel them, there should be some form of disciplinary measures meted out to these people. But they have allowed these persons to carry on, to fester on and see themselves as you abrogate to themselves powers that they clearly do not have. And then that is why people will say, oh, Nyesom Wike is bigger than the party. There is not one single person that is bigger than the party. If we had done the needful, if Ilyasu Damagun led MWC, who are rightfully empowered by our constitution to deal with Wike because he is a NEC member, and the NEC has the power to deal with a NEC member, I am sure by now all this crisis wouldn't have festered on. All these crises would have been nipped in the bud a long time ago. But because of course they are in bed, you shouldn't continue to condone such acts of insubordination.
Right. I mean, I wish we could continue with this discussion, but here's where we close the curtain. But we wait for June 19th for the next NEC meeting, and let's see how this plays out when it comes to the leadership of PDP, and whether or not ahead of 2027 they can smooth out the crisis, settle the squabbles between the FCT minister and chart a way forward as the biggest opposition to this administration ahead of 2027. But I must say thank you, David, for taking out the time to join us. David Godwin there, member of the PDP, giving us a bit of insight following the just concluded NEC meeting.